Hello, Alabama fans, and welcome to the BamaOnLine Big Show. I'm BamaOnLine publisher Tim Watts, and with us is team writer Charlie Potter extraordinaire, also the team editor, does a lot of great things for us there, wears the best hats. I'll have Andrew Bone livid if he hears this part of the show, but luckily he doesn't. He only watches his segment. But welcome to the show. We appreciate y'all tuning in every week. It's always a fun show. Win, lose, or draw, we are here. Charlie Potter, you were in Knoxville. Give us some quick thoughts on, the game. I mean, it's been rehashed to death, especially on the Bama Online Roundtable. Everything's been analyzed from color of shoelaces to the fadeaway jump shot on fourth down. But just give us some of your thoughts as to the game itself.
Yeah, it was one that it was kind of hard to predict what was going to happen, and even going into the second half after the first, it was kind of hard to predict what was going to happen. But I thought overall, I thought there were some encouraging things from the defense. I thought in the first half they played really really well. Now, granted, Tennessee is struggling on offense, and if Nico could hit some of those deep shots, the score would have been a little different. But other than that, I mean, the DBs might have got the receivers off their timing, off their routes a little bit to force that. So you got to give credit where credit's due. But the second half, the run game for Tennessee came alive a little bit. I think they had 170 yards on the ground in the second half, and that's never ideal. I know half of those came on one possession, and I think that's worth stating. But the defense got stops when it needed to. Heck, they got a stop at the end, which was not what we saw against Vanderbilt. But then, on the flip side, the offense was the one that struggled. Jalen Miller didn't have a good game. He had a couple turnovers. The one in the end zone kind of leaves you scratching your head a little bit. Not because, I know I've seen some things about Caleb Odom and things like that. I just wonder why you don't run the football in that situation on the 3 or 2 yard line, whatever it was. So there's just a lot, I think, left on the table. I think Kalen DeBoer said it best kind of immediately after the game that Alabama's not playing complementary football, not playing team football. And I think that's been true really the last 3 weeks. And you could probably go back to the second half of the Georgia game. So, I know we're going to talk about it, but it really impacted the season. You could still make the college football playoff, but now your margin for error is basically none.
Yeah, and I think, going into that, I don't think if we were discussing this going into the season, you said Bama's undefeated, they lose at Tennessee, they're still in a decent spot to make the playoffs, especially if they've beaten Georgia. The Georgia game we thought was the key, right? Beat Georgia, you got to win 2 or 3 at Oklahoma, at Tennessee, and at LSU. That's kind of the thinking. But if you beat Georgia, you can lose 2 of those 3. So we thought that was the key game. We didn't really anticipate Vanderbilt being the key game. I think that threw a wrench into everything in a lot of ways. Also, I noticed, I've been arguing with my friends that Vandy is Vandy. Well, Vandy is only 17.5-point dogs at home to Texas. That is not the norm.
No.
Even being 22-point dogs at Bama wasn't the norm.
No, and they didn't have a very impressive win over Ball State. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of going back to the Vandy of old, but they're still. I mean, Alabama and Vandy have the same record. I don't think anybody could have predicted that. I do think, though, I don't know if I thought Georgia was the key to the season because I just felt like we didn't know enough about this Alabama team. I think that it almost makes it feel different because they were able to beat Georgia, and then those expectations got so high, and then you have the lowest of lows the next week with the loss to Vandy. Still, though, I think if you could go back to August, July, whenever, and say Alabama's entering the Missouri game, its homecoming game with a 5-2 record, Alabama fans would be like, okay, I could see that. You got the Georgia and the Tennessee games in the rearview mirror. Hell, maybe even Wisconsin, I don't know. But to know that it was Vanderbilt, I think leaves it even more sour taste in their mouth. And it's a tough one to swallow for sure.
Yeah, I think it's like some of the blue bloods in basketball when they lose to Alabama now. Maybe 2 years ago when they lost to Bama, they're like, no way we lost to Bama, right? And I think it's a different mindset now. But
that is disrespectful as hell, Tim.
I mean, it's
to
true.
Alabama hoops.
Never forget this. You and I were talking about this, I think, texting. Never forget Alabama played a non-conference game against UConn and got their butt kicked. And the whole board was like, this ain't it. This system ain't working. We need we need Magic Johnson. We need Kareem. We needed all that. and then they ran the table for 2 friggin' years. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So I think perception's big. Just referring to Vanderbilt, honestly,
I know.
I think if Vanderbilt was top 5, people would have trouble losing to them. You know.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's turn the page to Missouri. To me, this is it. You focus on your next game, right? That's it. You focus on the next game. You don't worry about any other games. It's this game and nothing else.
Yeah, you have no margin for error, like I said. I know a lot of people are going to look ahead a couple weeks to LSU, and that does feel like the season because Alabama should beat Missouri, but you can't really put the cart before the horse right now if you're Alabama because you have a lot of things you need to clean up. And Missouri's a good football team. They've had some struggle wins. I think everybody saw what happened on Saturday with Brady Cook. That was such a weird thing for him to leave, go to the hospital, come back, all that stuff.
I mean, he was gone 2 hours. He
Right,
was
right.
gone like I thought he went home, took a shower.
But now these games, I mean, hell, that's only missing a couple quarters because of how
Yeah.
long they're running. But no, it is a kind of be where your feet are kind of weak, and it's going to be tough because I know it's hard on some of the players and the coaches. You can tell some of the agitation from some of the assistants because when we go in there, we can't just dictate what day of the week we talk to them, but we'll talk to assistants on Wednesday, and you're bringing up the Tennessee game and some things of old when they've already fully turned the page as of Sunday. But that's just kind of the way the job works. But no, I think for this Missouri game, you got to win. I don't know if you have to win impressively. I think that would make our board a much nicer place to be. But I do think that a win is definitely it's necessary. It's if you don't, then your hopes of accomplishing some of your goals are out the window because I don't think right now I would have to like do some math and come up with some crazy scenarios. Alabama's not playing for an SEC championship this year, but they can still make the college football playoff. But that goes down the drain with a loss this weekend.
Yeah, I was talking yesterday. If you think about it, Bama has the number 1 best win of the season, right? There's
Absolutely.
not a better, and Georgia beating Texas cemented that. Georgia obviously beating Texas is top 3. Oregon being Ohio State's probably the top 3 wins right now. Heck, Vandy might be in there too. Now that you think about it, but Bama has some resume builders, and if they went out and again cart before the horse, they'll have some other stuff that's going to make the resume look good. It's just hard to see that with them struggling the way they are. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. I mean, it's been opinion city, and I know the fans sometimes get mad at us. We don't see what the coaches see. I mean, the best window you, Jimmy, and Blake get are, 10, 15-minute window to watch, some throws that are pretty standard that you three could probably make just to get warmed up for the most part. What are your thoughts on the quarterback situation? Jalen's obvious. I mean, he missed some. He reminded me of Ricky Vaughn in the movie Major League. He threw one so far over Justice's head. I don't think Justice even raised his head. Just give me some thoughts on the quarterback. You don't have to do a hot take, but give me some of your thoughts overall.
I don't really have a hot take. I don't think there should be a change just yet. I think if this continues, you have to start to have the conversation. Maybe the bye week sets that up, and that's obviously hypothetical. But Jalen just doesn't look very confident. And I know, heck, again, it's another week where people have some crazy questions they want you to ask the assistants
Yeah.
and Kalen DeBoer. But I mean, I did ask Kalen if he thinks that, or if Jalen's banged up at all, if he's fully healthy. But then with him and Nick Sheridan, what do you do to build up his confidence? Because really, from the first snap, Jalen just didn't look himself in Knoxville. And he talked about it going into the week how he was confident, he was ready to have some fun. I think it is fun for them to play in those road environments. I don't think he really gets shook up by that because I mean, hell, Neyland's a rowdy place to play. It's one of the toughest places to play, but from the jump, he just didn't look comfortable. Blake and I talked about it in the press box, and then leaving, he didn't look as assertive as a runner, and that leads you to wonder that maybe there's something he's dealing with. And Kalen DeBoer kind of brushed that off. He didn't completely rule it out, but it is a situation where Jalen has to be better. He has, I think, 6 turnovers in the last 4 games, 4 in the last 2. His completion percentage is down after just being really, really rock solid to start the season. He had a fantastic month of September, but it's really fallen off here of late, and he needs to bounce back in a big way because the chatter is only going to grow louder for him and for this offense. But again, I don't think we'll see a change this week. I think if it continues, you have to have the conversation. But right now, Jalen Milroe is your starter, and you have to find a way to build up that confidence.
18 targets. Is that the most in Alabama history? I don't know. Can we research that? I mean, I don't remember that number. And Lane Kiffin threw to Amari Cooper every time Blake snapped the ball. And I don't remember anybody saying, of course, they didn't talk about targets like that. And then Ridley had a ridiculous like 89 or 90 receptions as a freshman. Can we find out? I mean, I should have texted you that, I guess, but
it's not really a stat that's kept
okay.
in what I look at on a weekly basis. I don't think it's in Alabama's just right here, this lofty record book. I don't think that's even in that. But I don't know. But it felt like a lot. You know, you got to wonder about Smitty in 2020 too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that won the Heisman Trophy. You'd think he would get targeted that many times, but it felt like more than 18, if we're being honest. You know, it just felt like whenever Jalen was under any pressure or anything like that, he was looking for two. And even when he wasn't, it kind of felt like he was forcing the ball to Ryan Williams a little bit. So I know people were, you know, upset about the interception on I think the third possession when Alabama's inside the 5-yard line, and he lofts up kind of a forced pass to Ryan, you know, wondering why Caleb Odom doesn't get the ball. Again, run the football in that situation. It's second down. So it just felt like they were going to Ryan a little more than normal. And then even more so, Jalen was looking his way more than normal. But, you know, he still had a big game, caught a touchdown. But I think he could have spread the ball around a little more because guys like Jeremy Bernard and Kendrick Law being back were big.
Yeah, I think Jalen was feeling pressure that wasn't always there, but Tennessee does have a good. But look, Bama's played back-to-back good defensive lines. I mean, I know you were not sure how much you saw of South Carolina or Oklahoma, but their defensive line just killed the Sooners.
Yeah, well, they have like 9 sacks.
Dude,
like,
it was. I couldn't even keep. I mean, I was done watching that game by halftime, but it was a monster stat line.
That's the situation too when we talk about Alabama in the postseason. If Vanderbilt and South Carolina continue to play well, that can only mean good things for Alabama's resume. You want them to play well and Tennessee too. You want Tennessee. I mean, I know that's tough to swallow, but you know, once these college football playoff ranking shows come out, you want Vanderbilt and South Carolina and Tennessee to be winning games and to be maybe showing up in the polls.
Before we bring Blake Byler in, I want to say, you know, the one thing I don't think we gave enough appreciation or credit to is I thought Tennessee's DBs did a good job with Ryan. I mean, even when he caught the ball, they were right there. You didn't see him wide open. Now, they did have that massive hold. Again, we'll talk about some penalties with Blake and things to clean it up. But let's welcome in Blake Byler. Blake, welcome to the show. This is Blake's our newest hire. Brought him in. We're discussing before the show started that Blake might be bad luck. We don't remember losing to Vanderbilt. We don't remember losing these games till we hired Blake. And you know, I'm a redhead too. They got that witch thing in the old days. They drowned us. So I think you're going to have to be like the Sooner offensive coordinator, and we're going to have to sacrifice you here with one more loss. But welcome to the show, Blake. Blake, some quick thoughts, trip to Knoxville. We're going to move on to Missouri after that, but just give us some quick thoughts on the game. We haven't had a chance to talk to you yet.
Well, before I get into that, I was doing a little research waiting to be added in. Devontae Smith had 15 catches in the 2020 SEC championship game against Florida. I couldn't find targets, but Mac Jones had 10 incompletions in that game. Wouldn't be shocked if a couple of those went to Devontae, so possibly close to 18 targets in that game a couple of years ago. But the game itself, it's just like it's a frustrating result because of kind of what y'all have talked about already, just with the lack of ability to play team football. And we've seen this with a couple of Alabama teams in the past. It's like one side shows up and then the other doesn't. And it's frustrating because you see one side execute and you're like, I saw 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when Alabama's offense looked unstoppable against Georgia and they scored on a limited number of possessions against Vanderbilt, even though they lost that game. And so now that you're finally getting production and you're finally getting a good performance out of the defense, it's the offense that doesn't show up. And so I think that makes this team really confusing because like you said, Charlie, if you told an Alabama fan before the season, hey, Alabama's going to be 5-2 going into the Missouri game, they'd be like, yeah, okay, probably a loss to Georgia and a loss to Tennessee. And you could kind of grapple with that and be okay with that. But now you're looking at it and the loss is to Vanderbilt and the win is over Georgia. So you've seen the capabilities that this team has. And I think that makes it even more frustrating to watch, knowing that this team is capable of playing like the best team in the country. And we saw that against Georgia for the majority of the game. We saw the peaks that this team can have, but now we're seeing the valleys, and it's a really low valley, and it's not good on the offensive side. And we've seen the defense be really bad at times. So they got to get back to playing team football, and that has to start with this Missouri game. I agree that it doesn't have to be a 2, 3, 4 touchdown win. They need to get a win and get into the bye week, maybe get a little healthier and gear up for that LSU game. But none of that LSU game, none of that's going to matter if they can't get a win against Missouri. So they got to take care of business this week.
We're going to change gears just a little bit. We'll probably come back to football, but I got to brag on my guys, Blake and Charlie. They were one of just a few media members who were at the Bama and at Boutwell game Friday night. Fun game to watch. I mean, that team, I mean, missing 3 starters. Wake Forest is a heck of a basketball. I almost said football. Heck of a basketball team. Very good game. But Charlie and Blake, y'all were there firsthand. Charlie, give me your thoughts on that game that looked like a really cool, intimate venue.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to expect, but when we walked in, Blake and I were both like, oh. It was very intimate, but it was not in a bad way. They filled it up pretty well. I think there was just I think the official number is 2,068. That's how many people were in there, but they were loud. They had a lot to cheer for. I mean, Alabama played really well. But no, I think that's, you're sitting there on a Friday night before the Tennessee game. Coleman Coliseum might have had the same number of people show up just because it's such a bigger venue. But I thought that was nice to have it in Birmingham. They're going to have another one in Huntsville, but overall, really impressive. I thought a lot of guys played. I don't think anybody played bad from an Alabama standpoint. Maybe some guys' stat line wasn't what they wanted it to be, but for Alabama to be without 4 scholarship players, 3 guys that are potential starters, and to come 2 points shy of 100 is wild. Mark and Aiden Holloway were great from 3. I think they combined for 19. That'll play. But I thought defensively was actually pretty encouraging too. Adding Cliff obviously helps, but Mo Diabate played with his hair on fire. I thought Jaron Stevenson did some nice things. Darion Reed, I thought was a real bright spot from a defensive standpoint. So it's just, you can make a list of all the positive takeaways. The negative was Blake and I got up to Tennessee late as hell. So it was made for a rough start to what was an already rough Saturday, but I'm glad we went, and it was a lot of fun.
I tell you, I was at home. You guys were obviously there, but the Auburn emotional roller coaster with Aiden Holloway was kind of fun to watch because, Aiden didn't really come out of the gate, and I didn't notice it. I was on the round table. We were discussing in the game thread. Somebody's like, they're talking about Aiden, and I saw a few threads because, he didn't get off to a great start. And then Blake kind of took over for a little small window there and not shy about it.
Yeah, he did. As I was kind of watching the game, I was taking notes, getting ready to kind of write my observations after the game. And at the first half, at halftime, I had a note by Holloway that said, way too timid. And in the first half, he didn't look very comfortable. He, I think, was passing up a good number of open looks and looks that Nate Oates wants him to take with how good he's talked about a shooter he is. He said he's one of the best shooters that has come through Alabama. And he showed that at times against Wake Forest. But yeah, in that first half, he was way too timid. He wasn't comfortable attacking the rim. He wasn't comfortable taking shots. But I think after halftime, the game just kind of slowed down for him and he felt way more comfortable. He was able to get a lot of kind of in rhythm catch and shoot looks, which I think was something that his game was missing last year at Auburn. And I think he had a shot selection problem last year. And I made a tweet about this. Like 4 of Holloway's 5 makes from 3 against Wake Forest were catch and shoot looks. And last year, when he shot 30% from 3, a lot of his looks were off of high ball screens, off the dribble, movement threes, like shots that whenever you're already struggling aren't going to get you in a rhythm. It's just stuff that's going to tank your percentage, tank your confidence even more. So I've always thought that he was going to have a better shooting year because of the types of looks he's going to get in this offense, because there's so many threats. Like there are guys everywhere that can take a shot. So the defense can't really key in on Sears or can't key in on Reitzel when he's back. Like, you're going to have so many shooters around the perimeter. And now you've got more of a presence on the interior whenever the defense collapses. So he's going to get a lot better looks. He looked great in the second half. I thought kind of the same thing happened with LeBaron Philon. I thought he was really active from the start of the game, and so that was a big positive, especially on the defensive end. But offensively, he looked a lot more comfortable in the second half as well. And when we talked to Holloway after the game, he even said that as the game went on, he was getting more comfortable. He was kind of shaking the rust off, like playing your first game with a new team in front of a crowd against an actual opponent. And so he looked really good, and I think he can be a really important and solid contributor for Alabama this year.
Charlie, I did this because I've been doing this with everybody. Mark Sears is so good, we don't even talk about him anymore. In the message board here, I have to remind myself, mention Mark. He's so good. We're kind of just like, we knew what he was going to do, but I want you to talk about Mark's performance. And really, a guy I loved seeing was Mo D. I mean, getting to challenging at the rim, used his body like a pro, feeding off that, finishing, getting up there. I think he had double digits, maybe points in that game, 10, right? I think it was. But it was the way both of them played, that energy. They were both energy guys, Charlie.
They were, yeah. It is tough because, like, afterwards, we talked to Nate Oates on the court, and they brought out 3 players, and Blake and I kind of dispersed. And, Blake ran over to Aiden Holloway like it was Christmas morning, going to unwrap some gifts. And then I was like, Mo D or Mark, and I went to Mo D. Like, even that felt disrespectful to Mark Sears. But it's a situation where he just always shows up, man. He's on. He looked like he was in midseason form. I know that's probably some rat poison that Natos doesn't want to hear, but for a guy like Mark Sears going to his 5th year, his 3rd in the program, he's going to be a guy that's a preseason All-American by every outlet, and he played like it. I thought Mark Sears just played like Mark Sears, and that's what you want. And I thought Mo D, it was very encouraging because when you look at this team and all of the weapons that they have, sometimes when you kind of do it in your head, put together a lineup or maybe some rotations, Mo D's kind of the odd man out. And, for him to play like he did, if he continues to do that, you're going to have to put him in games because he makes an impact. He's going to pile up blue collar points for this team. And then we saw Mo D knock down a 3 in the exhibition. And Blake and I just kind of looked at each other like, oh, here we go. The Mo D game. Here we are. So no, I think there were a lot of encouraging things from the game, but I thought Mo D was really a top 3 takeaway from it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't go into the game expecting Mark Sears to play poorly. He certainly didn't. He showed up. He was Mark Sears, and if he keeps this up, he's going to be a postseason All-American and be right there in the mix for Player of the Year.
Before we continue, I've got a message. I'm doing commercials here. It's very uncomfortable, but I will say it's Whataburger. We are very selective on what we do. We have one here in Alabaster. It is a good burger. I don't know if you've ever had it. Blake looks like he's a little snotty about it.
But, here's a quick story. So
please,
the exhibition ended late. We're there. We're doing coverage, and we decide we'll just go get something to eat afterwards. And I stop in Trussville because we're going up to Tennessee. Sure. There was a Whataburger in front of the Sam's Club, and this shows you how long it's been since I've been to Trussville. We pull up, and there's like a fence marking it off. They've stripped the orange off the building, and we're just like, damn, what are we going to do now? so here's the thing. BOL was potentially fueled by Whataburger.
Oh, yeah. We were there mentally. There's going to be a truck when y'all go to LSU that you're going to be able to grab. They've got their Go truck that'll be out there, Shea Dixon. Anyways, let me read this.
Okay.
Hello, football fans and basketball fans. Whether you're cheering for Alabama on November 9th, plan for a pit stop at the Whataburger food truck during your tailgate. Get ready to watch your team by securing an easy W first with a hot, fresh Whataburger, that is. And no, we're not reading that. And when Alabama comes out on top, when you take your team with that W to Whataburger, you'll know you've been a winner twice. I ad-libbed a lot of that. By getting your food made your way fresh and hot every time, 24/7. See you at the game and see you at Whataburger. And again, Shea Dixon will be there for the LSU game. I guess they've been traveling and doing some things. Also, we want to remind you, we appreciate everybody turning into the show. Please give us a like and subscribe. You can find all of our content at BamaOnLine.com. Coming up later in the show, we've got Andrew Bone, recruiting extraordinaire, probably wearing a black hat, just robbed a bank. We'll have Jimmy Stein looking way too crisp for this early in the morning, and Joseph Hastings. So we'll be covering recruiting, national news, and everything else. Before we let you guys go, let's talk about, give me one thing Alabama has to do this week to win and to play well and just to look like a football team.
Yeah, one thing is we need to get a new commercial reader. I think
I'm just, dude. I don't want to come off as too professional because then they'll think I'm trying to like be a man of the people.
That might help. That might help in the win-loss record for sure. I do think offensively they have to play. They have to play better. I think a balanced approach would be nice to see. I think mix it in the run game. You know, if you have a explosive, not even explosive, if you have a competent rushing attack, that helps with the quarterback's confidence. And I don't think Jalen is someone that necessarily lacks confidence, but the last 2 weeks haven't been great. And so he needs to play cleaner. He needs to make better decisions. You know, I think overall, I don't really know. There's not a one fix for this offense right now. And that's kind of wild to say because you look back to even the Vanderbilt game, the offense played really well. But I just think the offense needs to kind of, kind of get kicked in the pants a little bit. And if they come out and play well against Missouri, if this defense kind of has a carryover from what they were able to do and kind of keep on this kind of slow but steady positive trajectory, I think they'll be in good shape. But you know, the offense, Jalen Milroe, they have to get it together this week.
Blake, give us one thought.
Yeah, to that point, just staying with the offense, Jalen Milroe's got to complete the easy open pass. And there were a number of occasions against Tennessee where you had guys open and he just missed them. And that can't happen because this offense isn't going to go if you've got Ryan Williams with no one within 5 yards of him and you overthrow him. So, like, short thought, but it's simple. Jalen's got to convert on and be accurate throwing to open receivers.
All right, guys, we appreciate you. Later in the week, you'll have the Alabama-Missouri pregame show. That'll be with Charlie Potter, Blake, and Jimmy Stein, who we're about to welcome into the show. Also, we'll have the postgame show, win, lose, or draw, after the Alabama-Missouri game. So you guys, we appreciate the coverage, especially the breakdown. So you guys go enjoy the rest of your day. We appreciate it.
See you guys.
Thanks.
There he is. Black, nondescript, white male, 5'10", 80. That's 87.3% of every bank robber in history, just for the record.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, boys. Jimmy, you look good. You look funky fresh today.
Just got a haircut. I mean, just now.
You look good. Just this morning?
This morning.
You cut your own hair, Fluby? You got the Floby thing going? What is happening?
I like to say I didn't get a haircut. I got all of them cut.
All right, welcome to the show. We're going to talk a little bit about Missouri. We all talked about this. The one thing, we just asked the guys, give us one thing. Blake, we asked Blake and them to give us, Blake and Charlie, give us one thing you think you'd like to see Alabama do. I'm going to go ahead and give mine. I like to see the offense with 3 or less penalties. Maybe that's a reach, but stop being 1st and 15. Stop being 2nd and 3, and then it's 2nd and 8. Stop doing any of that. You've seen fantastic defensive linemen, okay, back to back. Nothing against Missouri, but you should be battle tested, Jimmy. Give me your thought, Jimmy Stein.
More productive at running back. I mean, I sort of feel like I've been harping on it now to the point that I worry it's just not going to happen with this group, which is really frustrating because I really believe Jam Miller and Justice Haynes are good players somewhere in there. But it's running the ball and stopping the run. To me, it's like the number one kind of joint problem with the football team in terms of why are they underperforming a little bit. And I think in terms of having a great second half of the season and playing really well down the stretch, that's just the key for me is just being productive at the running back position and stopping the run on defense.
Andrew Bone, give us a thought.
I think just knowing that you have other playmakers out there besides Ryan Williams. I mean, you want to get the ball to Ryan Williams. He can make plays. He can make explosive plays. But, 18 targets in that game against Tennessee. And you had some other guys that, that were running wide open that can make plays. I think you kind of get into a rhythm, got to get the ball to Ryan, got to get the ball to Ryan. He's going to make the play. He's going to be the one that steps up. there's other guys on this team that can step up, and we've seen that. And I think if we can distribute the ball a little bit better, I think that's going to make Jalen's job a lot easier rather than just focusing on where's Ryan. I got to get the ball to Ryan.
Yeah, I agree with your point. I think Jeremy had a pretty good game, and the thing about Jeremy is he's a tough guy. And, we've talked about that security blanket before. I always use the Mechie Bryce Young deal. I think Jeremy's that for Jalen. He'll come back to you. But to Andrew's point, I agree. You got those layered routes where Jalen's he's got guys. It's not like it's just Ryan in his line of sight when you watch a lot of these pass patterns. They've got other guys there. And I get it. I get the thought, hey, throw it to Ryan, he'll make a play. I mean, I get the temptation, but also, like you said, Andrew Bone, there's a lot of guys in the out of the backfield. There's tight ends. There's a lot of guys in the wide receiving core that can make play. Jimmy, Missouri, go out, handle your business. Don't worry about anybody else. Is that the state of mind this team's got to have?
Well, you have to play well to beat Missouri. Missouri reminds me of Alabama in one way. I think when you look at Missouri's preseason expectations and look at their lineup, you thought they might be a little better than this. They've struggled in their wins. They do have a good one-loss record. They've only lost the one game. But, look at their 2 SEC wins. They struggled to beat a pretty average Auburn team, and they struggled big time to do that. They beat Vanderbilt in overtime at home. They struggled to beat a Boston College team that's probably not that great. And then the one time they go on the road to play a good SEC team, they lose 41-10. So this Missouri team has underachieved relative to their talent, relative to their preseason expectations, in some ways similar to Alabama. So this is not a juggernaut, but you better be careful because in one way they match up really well with Alabama. Alabama's secondary is really banged up. It's been an issue all year long. They have a quality quarterback that can get the ball to dudes outside. Burden and Weiss are dudes. They'll be difficult for any all-star junior or senior DB to cover. I think that Missouri passing game matches up with Alabama well, and it's a legit worry.
Andrew, same thing for Jimmy. I asked Jimmy. I mean, you come into this game, you want to do this. I still think it's the small things where you start at. I think it's making good decisions. That goes from penalties like Kendrick Law. And again, I think that could have been offsetting penalties fairly easy. In fact, I've never seen the first guy actually get punished in a football game. It's almost always the guy who retaliates. So pretty odd to see that. But I think you just have to be simple, line up and play football, and take everything else off the table.
Yeah, I mean, going into this week, you can't think about anything else except for Mizzou. You got to go out there. You got to figure out a way to win. They are going to bring some explosive playmakers on the outside with Luther Burden, with Theo Weiss, Brady Cook. His completion percentage a little bit lower than it was last year, but he can still get the ball to these wide receivers, especially going up against this young secondary. The biggest thing for Alabama is, when you get this team in 3rd and long, or, even 3rd and short, you can't make these bonehead mistakes. You can't, put your hands in the face. You can't grab, you can't grab the face mask. You can't, you got to do everything you can to not have a pass interference on, 3rd and 20. This is going to be a difficult challenge for this Alabama secondary and this Alabama defense this week. I'm really intrigued because, as Jimmy said, it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team. They get blown out by Texas A&M. They haven't really looked that great, but they're still 5-1. They still have, this team still feels like it's got a lot to play for, and it's still got a lot of playmakers on both sides of the football. They're ranked number 4 in defense in the SEC right now, so they can get into the backfield and they can stop the run. Are they going to, rattle Jalen throughout the night and or throughout the day, and how much is that going to affect, the overall game? So it's going to be an interesting matchup. But Alabama's got the talent, that they're a lot better than Missouri. But we just don't know which team's going to show up.
Yeah, I think you look at this. Let's talk about the quarterbacks, Jimmy. I mean, there's been a hot topic, and there's always been a hot topic since day one. I don't know if there's ever just been a season where to start the season to the end of the season, they were happy with the quarterback. I mean, I had a lot of friends telling me, or people I was talking to go, no, we were happy with Mac Jones. The hell you were. Everybody was saying Bryce Young was the guy, and how can they start him over that? And then, of course, Mac had that Auburn game, and that left a that left that taste in a lot of people's mouth. But there's been controversy since day one here. And here we are with Jalen struggling. And granted, very bad game. I mean, passes were off, overlooked receivers, didn't look explosive. What do you do if you're Kalen DeBoer? What are your preps for this game?
Well, the quarterback play just wasn't good enough against Tennessee, or even close to good enough. It's really disturbing that you get to his 21st start. And I think there's two elements to this. One is some of the things Jalen was doing are things that he's always struggled with, holding on to the ball too long, maybe taking a couple sacks when he shouldn't, maybe some poor decisions in terms of where to go with the ball, forcing the ball to Ryan when it just wasn't there. But secondly, this was the worst QBR rating of any of his 21 starts. He was consistently throwing those sideline routes crazy high. That's unusual. That's new. That's new. So, why did that happen? Is he hurt? And DeBoer didn't really deny that. Now, just about every player that's played 7 college football games this season is hurt. They're all dealing with something, which is what Kalen DeBoer said, in his non-answer to the question. So obviously Milrow's being bothered by something. I think that explains some of the inaccuracy at times and the poor play, but it's got to get better. If he's healthy enough to play, then he's healthy enough to play better. And I do think it's going to help. Missouri's good, as Bone pointed out, 4th in the SEC in total defense. This is a legit SEC defense, but they're probably not Tennessee. And certainly not Tennessee and Knoxville. So I think he's playing a little more a simpler golf course this week. It was Augusta National last week. It's a little more simple golf course this week for Milrow. And I think that bye week will help him get healthier for the stretch run. So just find a way, one more game. I do think limiting Milrow's runs and putting more on Jam and Justice is a really good idea until you get Milrow through that bye week.
Yeah, Andrew, same thing with you. I mean, I think, everybody says, my personal opinion is you want to have Ty Simpson ready to play, which I'm assuming they're doing already. Sark did make an interesting move this week with Quinn Ewers, putting him on the bench for a couple series. Came back, still had some struggles. I mean, we'll talk about Georgia, Texas in a minute, but what are your thoughts on swinging a curveball in there? Because it is a different type person you're seeing than Jalen, obviously, for a defense.
Yeah, I mean, with Jalen, and I'm not saying it's time to bench him or anything like that. I know there are obviously people that have different opinions there. Yeah, I think he's in a slump. How do you get out of the slump? I mean, I think obviously the coaching staff continues to put him out there, continues to, show and express confidence in him. They're not throwing him under the bus at all. I watched the press conference yesterday, and Nick Sheridan, Kalen DeBoer, they never said Jalen did this, Jalen did that. It's we. That's, because it's a team sport. You don't, you're not blaming one player on the struggle. So yeah, I do think that they're going to let Jalen, continue to go out there, see what he can do. But I do think that leash is going to be a little bit shorter now. I think that Ty Simpson is a guy that a lot of people have confidence in, but he hasn't been given that opportunity to go out there and start because obviously has Jalen Milrow. Let's see what he can do in this first quarter, first half. If he continues to struggle, maybe it's time to give Ty a chance. But I think, with Jalen, you just got to get him out of that funk that he's been in.
Jimmy, I love the chaos. I don't like the fact that Alabama has 2 losses, but I like the world's topsy-turvy. I mean, I have buddies, multiple people texting me, dude, this is crazy. Indiana's ranked ahead of Alabama in football. And I'm like, you want even crazier? Alabama's ranked ahead of Indiana in basketball. So, I mean, this is a whole new world, overall. Let's get some thoughts on the Georgia-Texas game. I think we all wondered, has Texas been tried? Nope, they haven't played anybody. Kirby goes in, hair's lit on fire. Thoughts on that game? Surprised at how low Texas was held?
Yes. I thought Texas would win the game. I picked Texas to win the national championship. I'm not even changing that pick even after this past weekend. It just goes to show how difficult it is to win every week, how difficult it is to win in the SEC every week. And the same Georgia team that lost to Alabama can go on the road and beat the #1 team almost handily in terms of Texas's offensive numbers, which were next to none. You can't help but be impressed by what Georgia did. that particular game. They have a great coach. They have great players. They're a little healthier on defense now than they were when they played Alabama. I think having a healthy Michael Williams makes a huge difference for them up front. Carson Beck didn't have a good game. Quinn Ewers didn't have a good game. Jalen Milroe didn't have a good game. Kind of that kind of a Saturday. But that's what we have now. We do have more parity. It's fun to discuss why. I'm sure NIL and the transfer portal has a lot to do with it. But there does appear, at least this year, to be a lot more parity. And I think the idea that anyone's finishing undefeated is just not happening. And guys, I won't be surprised. You know, several 2-loss teams will make the playoffs. Several 2-loss teams will be in the playoff. We shouldn't be surprised when a 2-loss team wins the national championship. Hadn't happened since 2007 when LSU did it, when Les Miles did it with a lot of Nick Saban football players. I think that's where we're headed, is general chaos. So Tim should be thrilled.
There's not 12 really good football teams, right? I mean, that's the thing about it. I mean, you could flip this, and there's still half a football season left, Andrew. I mean, you could see, you know, it's all imaginative, but Alabama wins out, Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt or Kentucky, something crazy happens. I mean, there's going to be a lot of flipping of the script. Georgia just flipped it. I mean, seriously, Georgia just flipped it. Oregon with the win over Ohio State. Again, Andrew, Alabama one game at a time, but the big picture stuff is still there for them possibly.
Yeah, I mean, and I wrote about it today on BOL about how 3 weeks ago everybody was talking about how, you know, great of a hire, you know, Kalen DeBoer was, because he was the perfect fit to come in and replace Nick Saban, and he beats Georgia, and you know, maybe Georgia's on the downturn, but then, you know, 3 weeks, you know, happen and Georgia goes into Texas and you know, completely dominates that game. But we're seeing that, you know, all over the college football landscape. And, you know, you're going from national media pundits are going from one extreme to the other. They're trying to create headlines and all this stuff. There's not a dominant, you know, one just dominant football team out there right now. Oregon, they look good, but they struggled in some games as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this season plays out. Injuries will play a big part of that. You know, you want to keep guys healthy, you know, across the country, but one injury could completely change the landscape of some of these, you know, some of these teams that are considered in that top 5, top 6 right now. But, and it's a fun football season. I mean, look at Army and Navy, what they've been doing this year. I mean, this entire college football season has been a lot of, even though it's been a little bit of a struggle for Alabama these last few weeks, it's been a fun college football season overall.
Yeah, before we continue, we want to remind you that Whataburger will be, if you're tailgating to the LSU and Alabama game on the 9th, November 9th at Baton Rouge, they'll be there serving up hot and fresh Whataburger for you and your crew. Shay Dixon from the LSU site, Charlie Potter, Blake Byler, there'll be some of the guys probably stopping by, so make sure to take an important detour on your way in and on your way to the win. And remember, your local Whataburger always ready to feed the team, made to order, 100% fresh, open 24/7. That's the easiest win you'll get all season. Jimmy Stein, going into this Missouri game, I think with Alabama, I still harp on the penalties. I think the small things are fixable. I mean, again, the Kendrick Law penalty was bad. Is it as simple as, because we've seen this 3 years now. I don't understand why so many Alabama fans who watch every game say they've never seen this before. When we've seen 3 years of the penalties, we've seen 3 years of some of this stuff. I mean, the whole discussion on the jump shot on 4th down is kind of crazy. If you're looking for a reason to be mad at your favorite player, favorite team, I mean, that's really a desperate move, in my opinion. If you're legitimately saying they're not playing well, that's one thing. But to talk about what they're wearing, what they're eating, what they're smiling, you can't. I'll tell you what I do, and I'm going to get on the rant. I tell my players, don't take your damn helmets off on the sideline, because everybody is a FBI facial recognition unit. If you smile, they're pissed. If you frown, they're pissed. What facial expression would everybody want when you're losing a football game? That's the thing. Keep your helmet on. Quit the black glass over. I would have them just completely where they can't be seen. But, Jimmy, anyways, cleaning this up, going into Missouri, give us a thought. Give us your expectations for this game.
I mean, I like your lead in playing a cleaner game. I mean, what would Alabama look like, guys? What would Alabama look like? This team, these guys, with either no penalty or very few penalties, no turnovers, no clear errors. If you just played a clean football game, what could happen? I'll tell you what could happen. You could beat Georgia. That's what could happen. When you play as well as you can beat anyone there is. Alabama is still that team. They just need to somehow find a way to find some more discipline out there and play better. And as to what you're saying about all the out of left field criticisms, I think it's just harder for a lot of people to criticize blocking, tackling, throwing, catching, getting off blocks, football stuff. But football stuff is why you win and lose football games, not because your wide receivers do something a little showy when all they're really trying to do is distract the defense in any way they can. They did something a little extra showy. So now we got to talk about that instead of blocking and tackling and getting off of blocks and making runs and making good throws and catches. That's what wins football games. Nothing's changed. They got to do a better job of those things. But a clean Alabama performance, they can beat anyone, definitely Missouri.
Well, Jimmy Stein, we appreciate you being here as always. Jimmy will join Charlie Potter, Blake Byler with the Alabama-Missouri preview. They'll have deeper thoughts on that. Jimmy, have a rest of the day. You look fantastic with that fresh cut. The Flowbee is back. Even only old people know the Flowbee, but it was an amazing infomercial. We're going to welcome in Joseph Hastings. Jimmy, we'll see you later on, buddy. All right, Joseph Hastings.
What's going on, guys?
We got to talk to you, Joseph Hastings. No, we don't.
We got a lot to talk about.
We got a lot to talk about. Recruiting, another home game. That's good, right? You get some visitors on campus. I mean, you got guys taking visits, other places. Some of the wide openest visits scheduled. I mean, Tony Mitchell would be proud. You know, Caleb Cunningham is going to rival Tony for visits taken. And hey, he told us he was, right? He said, I'm going to take a lot of visits, and he meant it.
Yeah, I don't think we expected to see this many visits. I mean, he's been to LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, back at Alabama, Ole Miss this weekend. I mean, he's taken a lot. And he still has some official visits to take. I think people kind of forget that, he's interested in taking some officials elsewhere. So yeah, these next few weeks with Caleb's going to be interesting to monitor with him in his recruitment.
Andrew, a home game, you happy to see him back on campus, see who shows up? I mean, we still got that follow the visits to some degree, but I mean, that's kind of out the window. But it's good to see who wants to come back and, some of the committed guys you've talked to.
Yeah, I think having a 2:45 game in Tuscaloosa helps a little bit more rather than the 11 a.m. kickoff. You can get some guys from out of state over to campus. You're going to see some official visits. You got some of the Alabama commits who've said they're going to be back in Tuscaloosa, including Luke Metz out of Georgia. You got Micah DeBose, the four-star lineman out of Theodore High School, Jabarius Gar, who is having an unbelievable sophomore season. Man, he's got to be close to 20 sacks if he's not already there. I know he had 4.5 sacks this past week. Certainly one of the best 27 players in the country. But there's going to be an extensive list of recruits on campus this weekend. I'm sure Alabama's excited to get some guys back in town, but you better put on a good showing for them.
Yeah, I think the two most interesting so far, we've got two official visitors right now. We got Anquan Fagans committed to Auburn, and we got Donovan Starr committed to Auburn. Safety, cornerback, two guys that they're looking to add in this class as far as position goes. Joseph, give us your thoughts on Fagans, and Andrew, I'll ask you about Donovan Starr.
Yeah, Anquan Fagans, known about him for a long time. I think the first time I saw him was back in early 2022. Been pretty much a high-profile recruit for most of his recruitment, national offers. He took that visit to Alabama right before his commitment, July 28th. He visited Bama, committed to Auburn the next day. And, we knew at the time he probably definitely wasn't going to be committing to Bama, but it was more so about setting the groundwork for setting up an official visit, which they were able to do a few weeks ago. We reported that they got that locked in for the Missouri weekend. And it's also important that, you keep that visit scheduled. And we were also able to confirm again this week that he's planning to be back on campus. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. The way things have gone between him and Alabama has always kind of piqued my interest just in terms of, his increased interest or, increased interest elsewhere and then going back to Bama. but the staff has done a really good job of maintaining communication there, and getting him on campus for an official is all you can ask for. So we'll see how it plays out.
Andrew, I like Donovan Starr. He's a different bird too. I mean, I've talked to some people. He could actually, he liked Vandy. He was at Vandy for the Alabama game to watch Vanderbilt. So I mean, he's a little bit of a different thinker, right? And a guy that can pretty much do anything. But his senior film's really good, and he's seen a lot of offers as it stands now.
Yeah, and Alabama actually offered him the day before they traveled up to Nashville prior to their game against Vanderbilt. And Donovan Starr out of Ravenwood High School in Brentwood. He's about 5'11", close to 6 foot, 185 pounds. And runs a 10.56 in the 100 meters. Now, he committed to Auburn back in the summer. Been committed there for a while, but other schools have certainly been pushing hard for him. Now, he's very interested in Vanderbilt. I think, Vanderbilt season, their win against Alabama certainly has piqued his interest there. He was there for the, as you mentioned, for the win against Alabama. And then he is going to go back there in November for an official visit. Now, I think he's going to get back down to Auburn. There's some other schools that are trying to get him in for visits. He's originally from Illinois, though, not from the Nashville area, originally from Illinois, but he likes Alabama. This is going to be his first ever trip to Tuscaloosa. So, Alabama really needs to make a strong impression because they like him. They're pushing for him, and we'll see. We'll probably know a little bit more about Alabama's pursuit with him after the weekend. As long as things go well, that could be a guy that they're really going to push hard for between now and December.
Yeah, Joseph, let's talk about Jackson Lloyd. He's a fan favorite, meaning I love him. As far as prospect goes, you had a good interview with him today. I think some of the mentality, and I think it's normal with fans to say what's going to happen with the team struggling, what's going to happen. I think that's kind of normal. I don't know many kids that committed just because a team was supposed to do well, although I think it could affect them. I think it could look like it affected them more if they flip down the road because of the NIL or just find a school they like better. But tell us what Jackson said and tell us how Jackson Lloyd's doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Jackson's having an exceptional senior season. Spoke with his head coach recently. He's playing on both sides of the ball. Really pushed his head coach to play along the D line. And we've been able to see some clips of him. He's been batting balls at the line of scrimmage and getting after, making game-changing sacks. So he's having a really good senior year. He feels he's in the best shape of his life. His coach echoed the same sentiments. But as it pertains to his recruitment, look, he's had a long-established relationship with Kalen DeBoer, Courtney Morgan, going back over to Washington. They were one of his first offers back when he was a 3-star, and he was flying under the radar in his recruitment, and they maintained those relationships. He got offered in January right after Kalen DeBoer was hired. We know the story there. But as for the season, just how it's gone, he made it very clear. Look, these are one-possession games. These are games where if Alabama cleaned up just a couple of those mistakes, they can be undefeated. They can be right there still with all the national championship contention categories. So he's not concerned about what's happened recently, and those relationships that he has with the staff are keeping him very comfortable with the decision that he made, and he's still 100% committed, as he told me.
Yeah, Alabama, obviously, they were focused on a great offensive line class. Courtney Morgan, the general manager, along with Coach Cap, needing some guys they felt that could come in and help compete right away. Did a great job, one of the best classes we've seen Alabama ever signed, but they haven't stopped there, Andrew. A huge prospect, 2026. Jackson Cantwell's expected back again. I mean, a guy that, number 4 in the nation right now. You watch everything about him. Just his bio is enough to get a guy in the top 100. But then his film, everything else about him, just a fantastic-looking prospect with a ton of offers as expected.
Yeah, I mean, this is a kid that comes from an Olympic family. Both his parents competed in the Olympics, were in the shot put. I mean, this is a guy that I think he was. I don't think he holds the national record in shot put, but he's like right up there. I mean, he is just an unbelievable athlete. He's 6'7", close to 300 pounds. Every school in the country wants this kid. He's visited Alabama 3 or 4 times, and he was in Tuscaloosa for the Tennessee game actually last season. So this isn't his first time being at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and he was at the cookout during the summer. So getting him back on campus to be around this coaching staff once again, definitely big. He said that he watched the Alabama-Tennessee game the other night. He has been keeping in contact with the Alabama coaching staff pretty regularly, mostly with Coach Cap, Alabama's offensive line coach. So getting him back on campus, certainly a positive, but a long way to go in his recruitment. Got a lot of schools after him, Georgia, Mizzou, LSU. He's going to be in LSU in a couple of weeks for that Alabama game. So a lot of contenders in his recruitment, and a long way to go there.
Andrew, you're a lot older than I am, and we've been doing this a long time. So have we ever used the term Olympic family in recruiting? I do not recall. It's a fantastic term. I'm a little irritated that hasn't been in a headline at BamaOnLine.com. Looking at you, Joseph Hastings. Looks like a deer in a headlight right now. But I don't remember ever saying he's from an Olympic family. I think that's a great phrase.
Yeah, I think you'd have to look back at what's the kid that went to Auburn out of Hewitt-Trussville?
Drawing a blank.
And Noah something.
All right, so Noah something from the Olympic. Joseph Hastings, basketball recruiting. We got to throw Preston Murphy some love here, right? Yep. The guy plays Bama in Boutwell at Friday night, ends up in Vegas on Saturday.
Heck of a turnaround.
Andrew, this guy's, one of the hardest working guys in the business. You don't have to cover, hoops, but to jump in there, fly out to see, AJ, the number one prospect in the country, who's, Alabama's had for an official visit. On top of Michael Brown, Braden Burries, 3 5-star guys and top targets. This guy goes straight from Birmingham to Vegas. And when I was looking at that window, Joseph pulled it up. That damn basketball recruiting window it hardly ever shuts, does it, Joseph?
No, I mean, outside of a few weeks of the year, you have pretty much the entire year to go out and see prospects. And that's why it's always tough to track, when and where these coaches are visiting. But, they had the Border League tournament in Las Vegas. Some of the top teams in the country. AJ was out there against Carlos Boozer's son, on ESPN2 the other night. So, we got to see a little bit of a taste of the future. And look, when you're recruiting the number one overall prospect in the country, you got to make those trips, even on a short turnaround like that one. And Preston Murphy's proven to be someone who's willing to put in the work. He's maintained a great relationship with AJ and his father, going back well over a year, back to when he coached him. I spoke with them last year in person at an Orlando event, and they talked highly about Coach Murphy and what they think about him. They also saw Michael Brown, who visited twice in January, hasn't been back since, but could make another visit. He's somebody that I'm hoping to see on the road here shortly. And then also Braden Burries out of California, recent official visitor. All 5-star prospects, all class of 2025 targets. Not expected to make their decisions anytime soon, but Bama's firmly in the mix. And they also saw some 2026 guys. Number one overall prospect, Brandon McCoy, Jackson Richardson, who recently visited for the banner reveal, also attended the South Carolina game, and some other guys. So, yeah, a big weekend for Coach Murphy.
Yeah, the thing about it is, we always say, hey, so-and-so is going to see so-and-so. Imagine if we said that like 22 times for football. You know what I mean? Yeah. What are we like, hey, Coach Mo's like there again? That's kind of what you're dealing with hoops. But again, flying, going from Bama, and Bama looked great Friday night. That's on YouTube, Bama and Boutwell, for anybody who wants to see that team missing 3 starters. Just a lot of effort there going for Preston Murphy. And, of course, Nate Oates. I think Nate Oates is the catalyst, just like Nick Saban was. Andrew, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Well, we still got you guys. We're going to go one more little small segment here. Please do us a favor, hit like and subscribe. We enjoy this content. If you enjoy the content, make sure you get the notifications. We have a good time. All of us are buddies to some degree, some friends, some frenemies. We have a bunch of side texts that really separate the men from the best friends. But Andrew, last week, Cavante Henry, Bama flipped one, a good one, Mississippi State commitment. Guy down the road, but that might not be it. We've had a crystal ball, RPM forecast, whatever you'd like to call it, in for another commitment, and that clock seems to be ticking on another possible flip for Alabama.
Yeah, Marshall Pritchett, who's been committed to North Carolina since the spring. That's a guy that Alabama has really pursued heavily really since the summer. Alabama went out and saw him during the spring and came in for an official, came in for the Georgia game. And, we've been talking about him the last few weeks. Felt like Alabama really wanted a second tight end in this class. They already have Caleb Edwards out of California, who's considered a solid commitment, not taking any other visits. But Marshall seems like he is certainly on the clock. We would expect a, potential, decision as far as, is he going to stick with North Carolina? Is he going to flip to Alabama within the next, I would just say, I think it's going to happen soon. I don't know the time frame, but I do think it's going to happen soon. One thing I will say is there was another tight end that is committed to Washington named Vander Plug, who had been in contact with Alabama, who was going to come in for an official visit this weekend. I talked to Vander the other night. He has canceled that visit. I think it's more so because of Alabama. I think they feel like they're in a pretty good spot with Marshall Pritchett, and just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with him before they make a move on somebody else.
Yeah, the one thing about it is with Pritchard, assuming that he ends up in this class, Joseph, that's going to be 2 tight ends, but yin and yang. I mean, I've been watching Caleb's high school film. I mean, I'm telling you, this guy, he is a few Whataburger combo meals from being an offensive tackle. At his size, he's massive and still a receiving threat, but definitely more of an inline guy. Well, you got Marshall more in that physical build of a Caleb Odom.
Yeah, so I talked to Marshall about that actually recently, and he told me that he doesn't have any concerns about joining the class because of that, because of the 2 different styles of play. He's like, yeah, Caleb is closer to 250, going to be more that inline tight end. We do things differently. He talked about how much of a receiving threat he is, and you turn on the tape and you can see it. I mean, he's making plays, has a large catch radius, can really get down the field, has good movement skills, gets off the line of scrimmage really quickly. His midseason tape is pretty fun to watch, and they just had a huge win over Providence State as well. So 2 different styles of tight ends, and that's why you're able to recruit 2 guys like that, and both are coveted. Marshall had a good amount of offers, as did Caleb Edwards, and you're able to have both of them in a class and recruit both of them that way, just because of the 2 different styles of play that they have.
Number 1 class in the nation with the industry. I don't think anybody's noticed with Alabama's football struggles, but you want to struggle less in the future, you get that talent on board, and Alabama has the number 1 class in the country. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We're going to see what happens with this visitors list that we're working on. It's Tuesday. A lot of guys are still making their decisions, obviously, but we might have a recruiting show at the end of the week. Andrew Bone, thanks for being on. Would you like to say goodbye?
Yeah, thanks for watching the show today, Alabama fans. Go check us out at BamaOnLine.com. We got a lot of great content on there and much more to come today.
Joseph Hastings, where do we discuss the off topics like the NBA opening night, which Andrew has no idea is actually happening tonight?
Oh, is that man?
Andrew's like, damn, they start early. Joseph, where do we discuss all the topics, including attire for the coaches, jump shots from the wide receivers, what flavor ice cream helps you win versus helps you lose, all that good stuff, Joseph. Where can they find us?
Yeah, all those pertinent conversations and discussions take place on the BOL Roundtable. Be sure to check us out, and we're all participating in those conversations too. It's pretty interesting how far those topics can be taken. But join us for our NBA season opener, continued football discussion, basketball. I mean, it's a college basketball. It's a great time right now. Just a great time for sports fans.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys having on. Joseph Hastings, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everyone. Take care. Roll Tide.
Appreciate you, boys, and we'll see you guys later in the week. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We appreciate you watching. Thank you.